Today I'm going to be doing a video on the Solo Stove Lite by Solo Stove. When I first learned about this stove, I was super excited because plenty of sticks in the forest, so you should be able to cook hot ramen noodles on every backpacking trip indefinitely. This will be my first review. Hopefully there'll be plenty more of these. Down in the links below, I will be putting a link to the Solo Stove site, so if you're like, hey, that's exactly what I want, you can go buy one. Throughout the video, I'll be pointing out some pros and cons, and comparing it somewhat, not really a versus, to the Jetboil, which is my secondary stove. So here we go. So when it comes to setting up your Solo Stove, it is really important that you have a solid base. This big rock in the middle of our camp is perfect. There's no dry tinder around, pretty easy to move around the camp, pretty great spot. As far as fuel goes, anything you can find will work. Leaves aren't so good, wet wood definitely not good, but these little trimmings that I found around camp from where somebody had used an axe were perfect to get my fire started. As far as versatility, I mean, this thing can work anywhere, but you know, you can set it up on anything that's solid and where you're not going to knock over the water. Really quite versatile. So here's the stove. And if you buy both parts, if you buy both the pot and the stove itself, you get these two bags that they come in. This was a real big selling point for me. Just like the Jetboil, everything fits together in this tiny little space, which you know, is just perfect. Now, they do fit really snug, and that can be a little annoying, especially after a 20-miler when you're dying for that ramen noodles with mashed potatoes in it. But the pot itself gets charred, which is kind of nice because you can keep that out of your pack and keep that off of your stuff so that this black charring doesn't get all over everything. Now, the stove has its own bag. And if you see, the stove fits down inside of the pot. This is a really handy feature they made. You put the stove, which is dirty from sitting on the ground and whatever other things, inside of this bag that then fits down inside of your pot. There's a lot of reasons I love that. One of the main reasons is on multiple day trips, I don't have to get sand and dirt and char down inside of here. So that's a pretty handy feature. Now, moving along into the stove itself, I'll point out some features that the last video probably didn't show you. And this can be quite tenuous to get out. Okay. So here's the stove, and here's its top. The pot sits on. You can see the pot fits on there pretty well. Now let's work our way down from the top. Pot, great. Lid fits on perfectly, keeps stuff out. Has a nice little handle around the side here that you can grab it from the fire, drink coffee out of it, whatever you want to do. It is not very stable here. Now, I've not had one instance using this stove where it's fallen, but it could be possible. So you want to make sure that your base that you set this up on is a very sturdy place. Probably would not suggest ever using this inside of your tent. Of course, it does make smoke. So this little vent right here allows for wood to be put in as you're keeping your fire going, which is going to take a lot. You got to keep feeding it. This isn't something that you can set, go pump water, come back. You need to kind of stay with it and keep the fire going. Moving on to some of the features. I really believe the technology of the Solo Stove is this venting and the venting here. So what happens is it pulls oxygen in from underneath and puts it out. And when you're burning in this thing, you will see the most amazing little flames just lap right out of that whole area, which gives enough oxygen to burn the wood fast enough to heat the water pretty quickly. Down in the very bottom of it is a screen, and that keeps the sticks from filling up the base so your oxygen can continue to flow. I found all of this to work really well. It's very light. Let's talk about process of getting getting the water into your food bag, or however you're going to cook with it. We'll move back to the video. So at this point has been about 10 minutes. Gathering wood, getting the fire started. The little container with the red cap, that is just some cotton balls that I fill with petroleum jelly to start the fire. And then build and build, gather wood, continue to feed this little thing. As you can probably tell, I've had to take the pot off multiple times in order to get the fire going again. So this is definitely not something that you can leave alone, as I've said before. But it was really nice in camp with a little bit of smoke. We were camping in an area that allowed fires, but we had just decided to keep our footprint down. We were just going to burn this little fire, which gave us kind of that smoky smell and, made it pretty interesting. So, yeah, it was a pretty great burn. It's an interesting little device. So now let's compare these two stoves. I have the JetBoil Flash and I have the Solo Stove Lite. I'm going to compare them on 4 areas. I'm going to compare time of boiling water, size of the container, number of times it will boil water, and then the weight. So starting off with the time. The JetBoil Flash will boil 1 liter of water in 100 seconds. The Solo Stove will boil a half a liter of water in 10 minutes. It's a pretty big difference. As far as size, they both hold a liter of water quite well. As far as times, now with this special gas that you're supposed to use with the Flash, you get 10 liters of water out of this one. This one, how many sticks can you find? They're everywhere. So 1 million unlimited times. That's a pretty big factor. Weight. Now with the stove, a full canister of gas, the base, you're weighing in at 16 ounces. With the Solo Stove, with the pot, the base, you're weighing in at 16 ounces. So not a lot of difference in weight there. Almost like they planned it that way. I guess the question you got to ask yourself, do I want to burn unlimited? Am I going on a 5-day trip and I don't want to deal with the weight of multiple canisters or the mechanics of this breaking down somehow out on the trail? Where with this, there's really nothing to break. It'll burn forever. You could just put this pot straight into the fire if you had to. If you had a place with a large fire. I guess it boils down to, do you want to take the time, enjoy the fire, feed it sticks, watch it burns, quite interesting, or do you just want to eat? I guess you got to ask yourself that question. What I've decided to do with my Solo Stove is that's going to go into my emergency gear. Something I don't carry on every trip. Mainly if I'm going to go on a long trip, I might take it. But mostly it's something that could save your life in a disaster situation. You're always going to find sticks or something to burn to boil water. You can't always go and grab you one of these. So I guess that'll conclude my video. And you make the decision, which is better. I think it's more about what situation you're in than one better or one worse. Well, thanks for watching. Hope to have another video out real soon.